Elena had always believed in fairy tales, the kind where love conquered all and happily ever after was just a kiss away, but as she stood in the opulent foyer of their sprawling mansion overlooking the turquoise waves of the Mediterranean, she felt the first cracks in that illusion forming like fissures in fragile glass. It was a sun-drenched morning in late spring, the kind where the air hummed with promise, and Elena, at 8 months pregnant, moved with the graceful caution of someone carrying the world's most precious cargo. Her husband, Marcus, the self-made millionaire whose tech empire had catapulted them into a life of luxury yachts and private jets, paced the marble floors with his phone glued to his ear, barking orders about some urgent merger that demanded his immediate attention at an exclusive resort in the Maldives. "Darling, it's just for a few days," he had said the night before, his voice smooth as silk as he traced lazy circles on her belly, feeling their unborn son kick with vigorous life. Elena smiled then, her heart swelling with the love that had carried them through 5 years of marriage. From humble beginnings in a cramped apartment where they shared dreams over instant noodles to this pinnacle of success. But now, as she packed his suitcase with pressed shirts and colognes that cost more than most people's rent, a nagging unease settled in her chest, like a storm cloud on the horizon. Marcus had been distant lately, his late nights at the office stretching into weekends, his touches growing perfunctory, his eyes avoiding hers when she asked about the whispers of affairs that circled their social circle like vultures. She pushed the thoughts away, chalking it up to pregnancy hormones, reminding herself of the man who had proposed on a whim during a rainy picnic, promising to build her a world where she never had to worry again. As they loaded into the sleek black SUV for the drive to the airport, Elena nestled against the leather seat, her hand resting protectively over her bump, dreaming of the nursery they had just finished decorating with soft blues and tiny sailboats, a nod to Marcus's love for the sea. The drive was long, winding through coastal highways that gave way to remote stretches of road where civilization thinned out, replaced by endless fields and occasional gas stations that looked like relics from another era. Marcus hummed along to the radio, his free hand occasionally squeezing her knee, but his mind seemed elsewhere, his jaw set in that determined line she knew meant business was brewing. They stopped at one such station, a dusty outpost with a single pump and a flickering neon sign that read "Last Stop" for miles, the attendant an elderly man dozing behind the counter. "I need to stretch my legs," Elena said, her back aching from the hours in the car, and Marcus nodded absently, pulling out his wallet to pay for gas. She waddled inside, craving a cold drink and perhaps a snack to settle the baby's restless flutters, the bell above the door jingling like a cheerful omen. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of motor oil and stale coffee, shelves lined with faded candy bars and maps no one needed anymore. Elena browsed slowly, her mind wandering to the resort brochure Marcus had shown her, picturing him lounging by infinity pools while she waited at home, but she shook it off. A sacrifice was part of their success story, wasn't it? As she paid for a bottle of water and a pack of crackers, she glanced out the window and froze. Marcus was back in the SUV, the engine revving, his face illuminated by the dashboard glow as he checked his watch impatiently. She hurried out, the door slamming behind her, but before she could reach the passenger side, he locked eyes with her through the tinted glass, his expression cold and unyielding, like a stranger wearing her husband's skin. "Marcus?" she called, confusion lacing her voice as she tugged at the handle, but the door didn't budge. He rolled down the window just a crack, his voice low and final. "I'm sorry, Elena, but this life, it's not for us anymore. The baby, the pressure. I've found someone who understands." Her world tilted, the words slamming into her like a tidal wave, her hands flying to her belly as if to shield their child from the cruelty. "What are you talking about? We're family," she pleaded, tears welling up, but he shook his head, accelerating slowly at first, then faster, the SUV kicking up dust as it peeled away toward the horizon, leaving her stranded in the middle of nowhere, 8 months pregnant and utterly alone. The shock rooted her to the spot, her knees buckling as she sank to the gravel, sobs racking her body while the elderly attendant watched from afar, unsure whether to intervene. Hours blurred into a haze of disbelief. She called his phone repeatedly, but it went straight to voicemail, each beep a dagger to her heart. The gas station had no taxi service, no nearby towns, just endless roads stretching in both directions, and as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in fiery oranges, Elena realized the depth of his betrayal. He had planned this, chosen a remote spot where she couldn't easily follow or seek help. Her mind raced through their life together, the lavish wedding in Tuscany, the surprise trips to Paris, the nights whispering about their future family. How had it come to this? Was it the young assistant she'd seen him with at company events, the one with the predatory smile, or had his success eroded the man she loved, turning him into a monster who could abandon his pregnant wife without a backward glance? Night fell like a heavy curtain, the temperature dropping, and Elena huddled against the station's wall, her thin maternity dress offering little warmth, her phone battery dying as she texted friends who were hours away. The attendant offered her a blanket and some hot tea, mumbling apologies, but she barely registered his kindness, lost in a whirlwind of grief and fear for her unborn child. What would become of them? How could she explain this to their son someday? As the stars wheeled overhead, indifferent to her plight, Elena whispered promises to her belly, vowing to be strong, but inside, she shattered like glass underfoot. The remote location amplified her isolation, every passing car a false hope that slowed but never stopped, their headlights blinding before fading into the dark. She thought of her own childhood, orphaned young and raised by a stern aunt who taught her self-reliance, but nothing prepared her for this visceral abandonment. Memories flooded her, Marcus's laughter during their honeymoon in Bali, the way he'd cried during sappy movies, insisting he had allergies. Had it all been a facade, or had she been blind to the signs of the cancelled date nights, the secretive texts, the growing emotional chasm? By dawn, exhaustion claimed her and fitful sleep, dreams haunted by his receding taillights, and when she awoke, stiff and aching, the reality hit anew. She needed to find a way out, but with no money Marcus had controlled the finances and her cars likely frozen. Despair clawed at her edges. A truck crumbled in, a plumber's van emblazoned with Jack's Plumbing, fixing leaks and lives, and out stepped a burly man in overalls, his face weathered but kind, eyes sharp as he noticed her disheveled state. He approached cautiously, toolbox in hand, called by the attendant for a clogged sink. "Ma'am, you all right?" he asked, but Elena, pride bruised and voice hoarse from crying, muttered, "I'm fine," wiping her eyes hastily. Jack tilted his head, setting down his tools. "Then why are your eyes swollen from crying?" The question hung in the air, simple yet piercing, cracking open the dam she'd built overnight. Tears flowed again as she poured out the story, the words tumbling like a confession, and Jack listened without judgment, his own heart aching for this stranger whose world had crumbled. He offered her water from his cooler, a sandwich from his lunch, and most importantly, a plan of his truck could take her to the nearest town, where she could contact family or authorities. But as they talked, Elena learned Jack's own tale of loss. A wife taken by illness years ago, leaving him to raise 2 daughters alone, teaching him that kindness was the true currency in a cruel world. Their conversation stretched as he fixed the sink, Elena finding solace in his steady presence, a stark contrast to Marcus's fleeting affections. By midday, with the repair done, Jack insisted on driving her, refusing payment from the attendant. The ride was quiet at first, Elena staring out at the passing landscape, her hand cradling her belly, but gradually, she opened up more, sharing dreams for her son, fears of single motherhood. Jack shared tips from his parenting days, making her laugh for the first time in what felt like eternity, a sound that lightened the cab's air. They stopped for lunch at a diner, where he treated her to a hearty meal, waving off her protests. "Sometimes, life leaves you high and dry," he said, "but that's when strangers become lifelines." As they neared the town, Elena felt the spark of hope igniting, her resolve strengthening as she would file for divorce, claim her share of the empire she'd helped build, and raise her son with love unbound by wealth's chains. Jack dropped her at a motel, slipping her cash for the night and his number, promising to check in. "You're stronger than you know," he said, and for the first time, she believed it. Back at the gas station in her mind, the abandonment replayed, but now with the layer of empowerment Marcus's cruelty had revealed her inner steel. As Chapter 1 drew to a close, Elena checked into the room, called her sister who promised to fly out immediately, and as she laid down, the baby kicked as if in agreement that they would thrive despite the storm. With the motel room's faded curtains blocking out the afternoon sun, Elena sank into the lumpy bed, her body heavy with exhaustion and pregnancy, but her mind raced like a freight train through the wreckage of her marriage, piecing together the fragments of betrayal that had led to this moment. Her sister, Sophia, arrived by evening, a whirlwind of fury and support, enveloping Elena in a hug that smelled of home and childhood safety, vowing to unleash legal hell on Marcus for his abandonment. How could he do this? Sophia raged, pacing the small space, her phone already buzzing with calls to lawyers who specialized in high-profile divorces, ones who could freeze assets and expose infidelities in court. Elena, still numb, nodded along, but inside, a fire kindled, and not just anger, but a fierce determination to reclaim her life, to turn this nightmare into a story of triumph for her son. News of Marcus's actions spread quickly through their circles, whispers turning to outrage as friends rallied, offering guest rooms and financial aid, but Elena declined most, insisting on standing on her own feet, a lesson from Jack the plumber echoing in her ears. Kindness was a bridge, not a crutch. Days blurred into weeks as they navigated the legal maze, Elena's belly growing rounder, the baby's movements a constant reminder of stakes higher than revenge. Marcus, holed up at the resort with his new flame, a socialite half his age, ignored summons and calls, his lawyers stalling with claims of marital discord and mutual separation, but evidence mounted, bank statements showing secret transfers, emails hinting at affairs, even a prenup clause Elena had overlooked in her love-blinded youth. Amid the chaos, Jack checked in daily, his gruff voice a bomb over the phone, sharing updates on his daughter's school plays or plumbing mishaps that made her chuckle, a rare light in dark days. He visited once, bringing homemade soup and baby clothes from his girls, sitting with her on the motel's porch as stars emerged, listening to her vent about Marcus's rise from rags to riches, how she'd supported him through startup failures, late-night coding sessions where she'd bring coffee and encouragement, only to be discarded like obsolete software. He wasn't always like this, she confessed, tears welling, and Jack nodded, sharing his own regrets amidst anniversaries with his late wife, buried under work, teaching him that true wealth lay in connections, not coins. Their bond deepened, platonic yet profound, Jack becoming the father figure she'd lacked, offering rides to doctor's appointments where ultrasounds showed a healthy boy, kicking defiantly. As labor loomed, Elena moved in with Sophia, transforming a spare room into a nursery, painting walls with hopeful yellows, each brushstroke erasing Marcus's shadow. Court dates approached, the media sniffing around the Millionaire's midnight abandonment, but Elena shunned the spotlight, focusing on prenatal classes where she learned breathing techniques, imagining her son's first cry as victory's anthem. One evening, as rain pattered against windows, a knock startled Marcus, disheveled and alone, pleading for forgiveness, claiming the resort fling was a mistake, stress-induced madness. "I love you, Elena, the baby," he begged, but she saw the hollowness in his eyes, the same calculation that had left her stranded. "You drove away," she said calmly, hand on her belly, "and now, we're driving forward without you." He left defeated, tail between legs, and that night, contractions began, mild at first, building like waves crashing ashore. Sophia rushed her to the hospital, Jack meeting them there, toolbox swapped for a stuffed bear, his presence steady as doctors monitored. Labor was grueling, hours of pain intermingled with flashbacks, the gas station's isolation, Marcus's cold gaze, but also Jack's question that pierced her facade, unlocking vulnerability into strength. As dawn broke, her son entered the world with a wail that echoed resilience, tiny fingers grasping hers, eyes wide with wonder. Naming him Lucas, after light, Elena held him close, tears of joy mingling with sorrow's remnants, vowing he'd know love untainted by wealth's poison. Postpartum days were a blur of feedings and visitors, Jack bringing his daughters who cooed over the newborn, forging unlikely family ties. Legal victories followed, divorce granted, assets divided fairly, Marcus retreating to obscurity, his empire tarnished by scandal. Elena invested wisely, starting a foundation for abandoned mothers, channeling pain into purpose, speaking at events where her story inspired, always crediting the plumber whose simple query saved her. Years passed in a montage of milestones: Lucas's first steps in a modest home Elena bought, his laughter-filling rooms once silent with grief, Jack becoming Uncle Jack, teaching him to fix leaks in hearts alike. Elena dated sparingly, finding fulfillment in independence, her career blooming as a consultant, advising startups on ethics over greed. On Lucas's 5th birthday, at a park picnic, she reflected on that fateful night, eyes misting but smile genuinely. A betrayal had birthed beauty, abandonment leading to abundance of spirit. Jack arrived with cake, his daughters in tow, and as they sang, Elena felt whole, the swollen eyes of yesteryear a distant memory, replaced by eyes bright with future's promise. The story circled back, a testament to human kindness amid cruelty, proving that sometimes a stranger's concern rewrites endings. And as the sun set on their gathering, Elena whispered thanks to the universe for plumbers and second chances, her heart mended, her family forged in fire.